Plans for a high-speed rail have been on California's mind since the mid-90s. However, it wasn't until 2008 when voters approved what is known as Proposition 1A that asked for a $9.95 billion loan from state funding to begin the high-speed rail project that would link from San Diego County through the Central Valley and Bay Area and end in Sacramento. In total, the cost projected was estimated to be around $45 billion. However, today, that estimated total has now skyrocketed to around $64 billion, according to the article, Revote on California High-Speed Rail is Sought by Jim Watts. It's unknown how the high-speed rail will affect our state and our country because we have no form of transportation like it today that spans that far of a distance and goes at the speed it would go. Ultimately, the high-speed rail has more negative effects than benefits. The production of the high-speed rail should be halted before we dig ourselves into an even deeper economic pit because of the negative impacts it has on the Central Valley, the rising cost of production, and the uncertainties it has for the future. Construction for the high-speed rail began in Fresno on July 21st, 2015, already 2 years behind schedule from the target the Rail Authority had set in 2012, according to an LA Times article titled $68 billion California Bullet Train Likely to Overshoot Budget and Deadline Targets. According to an article titled Unjust Compensation, How Severance Damages and Inverse Condemnation Will Affect California High-Speed Rail Takings, found on Westlaw, around 1,460 acres of private land will be destroyed in creation of the rail. And if you don't know what an acre is, it's around the size of like a football field. And when I say destroyed, I mean the land is bought by the high-speed rail authority. However, the years of work on the precious soil and the time spent planting family roots in that area are now destroyed. For land that is not purchased by the high-speed rail authority, nearly 2,445 to 3,860 acres of farmland will be affected by the project because of the extraordinary noise and the vibration created by the high-speed trains. In the same article, a study was done on the effects of noise on herds of dairy cows and their production of milk and behavioral responses. The study found that milk production stopped after paper bags were exploded every 10 seconds for 2 minutes, and 30 minutes after the noise had ceased, milk production was only at 7% of normal. Harmful emissions from the train will also affect the crops that surround the rail. Funding for the high-speed rail has also caused some delays. According to the Transportation Issues Policies and R&D, High-Speed Passenger Rail Viability Challenges of Federal Role, in Chapter 2 titled, Future Development Will Depend on Addressing Financial and Other Challenges, Establish a Clear Federal Role, the federal funding of the high-speed rail must compete with other non-transportation funding demands like healthcare or national defense. Thus, federal funding loans can only support a fraction of the money needed to change the rail. The rest must come from private funding, which there is a lack of. And as you can see from this, the red is what we have in hand right now, and the gray is what's proposed that we don't have. Several lawsuits have also caused some delays in the production. Those that file lawsuits claim that it's unconstitutional for legislature to change or amend the voter-approved bond. So the $9.95 billion that was stated in the Proposition 1A has now changed, and so people are saying that's unconstitutional. California congressmen are also vowing to cancel any funding that is going towards the high-speed rail. In a Huffington Post article titled, America's Biggest High-Speed Rail Just Broke Ground, but a lot of people still aren't happy about it, quoted Martin Walks, a UCLA professor and emeritus of urban planning, saying, the public should understand that the uncertainties are much greater than the certainties. Some of the uncertainties are ticket prices. In an article in the LA Times titled Doing the Math on California's Bullet Train Fares, the initial proposed ticket price told to voters in 2009 was $50. However, in 2013, the price is raised to $83 to $105, depending on the distance traveled. But with the increasing production cost of the project, we are still uncertain on what a ticket will look like. Another uncertainty is how it will compete with other forms of transportation. According to the book, Transportation Issues, Policies, and R&D, High-Speed Rail, Passenger Rail, Viability Challenges, and Federal Role, the price of a high-speed rail ticket cannot compare to the price of a bus ticket. A study from the book on forecast riders for the high-speed rail found that bus riders care more about the price than speed of arrival, and also those who choose to travel by personal car care more about price and convenience than time.
So, for those of you that live in the LA area or the San Francisco area, if you could get from LA to San Francisco or vice versa in about 2.5 hours with minimal hassle, do you think you'd do it? Because I think I would. The California High-Speed Rail would be a solution for this. The high-speed rail would not only create jobs, help the environment, be convenient for the consumer and for people trying to commute, and it will also be able to be funded publicly and privately. First, with job creation. The California unemployment rate is currently at 6.3%, according to the State of California Employment Development Department. That's 1% above the national average. A 1% increase in employment rate is much larger than a lot of people think. 4% is usually what people target, so that's about a 25% increase than what we want. And the high-speed rail would create 160,000 construction jobs and 450,000 permanent jobs through maintenance, according to fourstory.org. It would also be very convenient for people trying to commute or people just simply trying to travel. 6 million people fly from San Francisco to LA each year, according to the Wall Street Journal. And 11.7 million people take Amtrak around the United States, which shows that there's not only a demand to get from San Francisco to LA and vice versa, but also people still take the train. The train would take about 2.5 hours, not be as cramped as a plane, and there's also less hassle due to baggage claim. Train stations would also be in metropolitan areas, unlike airports that need huge spaces to land planes and take off. So it would be much more convenient for people trying to commute from places like, let's say, Sacramento to San Francisco or Bakersfield to Los Angeles. The high-speed rail would also be much better for the environment. According to the American High-Speed Rail Authority, it would take off 80 flights per day from LA to San Francisco and take off 10 million miles by car each day by 2040. That would amount to 13 million megatons of CO2 by 2040. The environment is a huge concern right now to many people because temperatures are rising, ice caps are melting, and many species are dying due to our pollution. And the high-speed rail would help solve this. It would also be able to be funded jointly by public and private companies. As of March 4th, California just approved $2.6 billion for work in the Central Valley, according to ABC. They did this because they know it will help create jobs, and also it would be able to be funded privately because many companies would jump on it because now that Trump is president, it would help a lot.
Okay, so going to your claim of convenience, I think that the high-speed rail is really only targeted for the businessmen. It's not really targeted for like families who are thinking about traveling because once they get off, you have to think about like the family of 4 traveling. They still have to like rent a car and they still have to pay for that 4 tickets. And then if they want to come back, they have to pay for another 4 tickets back or even pay for a hotel. For comparisons to planes, I'm not really sure like what the security will look like for the train travel because I'm assuming that somehow it'll turn into like what a plane is like because it's still pretty much like the same thing, just like on the ground. Creation of jobs, yes, it will create jobs, but it'll also take away the jobs from like the farms that it's destroying and the workers that work on those farms. So you have to think about that. And then funding by the government is uncertain. because it still has to compete with those other federal funding prices, with those other federal funding like national defense and healthcare. And the price is also increasing, so the chance of it being fully covered by the government is unlikely.
So yes, the high-speed rail will cost a lot of money, but the government will also make back a lot of money because now since so many more people have jobs, they'll make a lot more money through taxes. It is behind schedule, but I think that helping the environment should be way more important on the timeline of when the train will be completed. And as for the land that's being destroyed, the people are paid for their land because according to the United States, they can take anyone's land if it's considered for the greater good, and I think the high-speed rail falls into this category. And the train will also take away cars that are driving by the fields in the Central Valley, so it's not really creating much more CO2 emissions near the fields than it was before.
So in conclusion, the high-speed rail would end up causing more harm than good. The failure of public knowledge and the funding has caused some major setbacks. As of today, according to the U.S. debt clock, California is currently in $455 billion of debt. And I personally think that we should be using the billions of dollars that we're spending on the high-speed rail for necessities rather than kind of a want. According to the U.S. Representative Jeff Denham, quoted in an LA Times article doing the math on California bullet train fares, he said, in a state grappling with lack of adequate water infrastructure, we could have built long-term sustainable water storage for a fraction of the cost of the high-speed rail. Or we could even use that money to improve the current transportation that we have, like the highways in LA.
In conclusion, the California high-speed rail needs to be completed because there's a huge demand for this. It will help the environment by decreasing 13 million megatons of CO2 by 2040. And it will help create jobs for many Californians that are in need. Thank you.